Bit of a change up on this week's Fellowship of the Rink. Leading off with the 97 Jordan flu game, or at least our best iteration of it, as Spoke Z and I break down the Fargo Regional, both battling through illness on our Judd'z Budz live stream. Then Ryan Carter joins Joe and I to talk Minnesota Wild, Mankato versus Minnesota State, and, of course, pro hair tips. We round out the episode, as we do every week, with our NHL Hot Takes segment. Now, here's Fargo Regional talk. That brings us to the final regional. Fargo. We got Western Michigan hosting, call them what you want, Minnesota State or Mankato. And you got the Gophers with UMass. Let's start with the Western Michigan one because, sneaky could be, we're going to learn really fast whether or not Mankato's for real. If their numbers hold up and what they've been doing in the CCHA is real, really shitty draw for Western Michigan to get. What do you make of this matchup?
I have a funny feeling Western Michigan is going to I feel the first 10 minutes, they are going to be full throttle. They might be 3-0 up in 10 minutes. I just watching them play. I just love Western Michigan. Their whole, the way that they play is very fun to watch in general. And they just love to the first 10 minutes are miserable. And I do think Mankato just gets exposed here. I not to talk shit about Mankato because
totally. But I feel the same way, and it's not from a negative stance. They're a solid team, and they're easily the best team in the CCHA. But I'm excited to see what it looks like against actual competition. I hope that they prove me wrong and that they can absolutely hold up against a team like Western Michigan. I don't see it personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling up the Western Michigan's past however many games. Four goals in a double OT win over Denver. 4 goals in the first round against North Dakota. They scored 6 in the quarterfinal in each game against St. Cloud. Put up 5 and 8 against Miami. Who cares? 3 against North Dakota, 6 against they just scored a million fucking goals.
But now pull up Mankato's stats. How many goals did they
allow?
Don't even.
That's the thing. I don't care. But I mean, Alex Bump doing his thing, 23 and 23.
Yeah.
There's Tim Wash. That's who. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just get tons of scoring.
But see, you forget that there's royal family lineage in Mankato.
True. That's a good
Rhett
point.
of House Pitlick.
Yeah, the Rhett of House Pitlick. That's a good point.
I don't know. I'm going to be fascinated to see it, but I'm definitely in your camp where I think Western is going to expose them. But I would love to be proven wrong. I think it could be a very interesting matchup if it's all firepower versus all defense. It makes for an interesting way. And kind of a hot take, I don't know. Gophers are fortunate that they lost as early as they did to Notre Dame because they would have been the 1 seed in this regional, and them against Mankato scares me a hell of a lot more than Western against Mankato. And this matchup with UMass feels, and I'm going to defer to you because you've seen way more UMass than me, but this feels like a way softer landing for a team that's going to be coming in with 3 weeks not playing.
Yeah. It's funny. It's Minnesota versus Mankato is the game where you're just I don't care if one team's 0 wins this year and one team's undefeated. It's a 50-50. It's just how this fucking goes in this region here. Versus Western Michigan, I just really have a funny feeling they're going to run the table on them. UMass, I would say if you're going to be in this, this is the matchup for Minnesota. That being said, UMass has had a really unexpectedly unbelievable year where they're pulling off wins against Maine. They beat them 5-1 recently, and then they lost in a shootout. They beat BC. They've beaten Lowell. There's one other one. They beat UConn. They've beat that. They're having, especially the last month and a half too, they've just been pulling off these like ridiculous wins, and that's another team that like they can score up and down their lineup. That being said, I still believe in the firepower of Minnesota to like take UMass here in this first round. And I do think like realistically, when you just look at all the matchups in the first round, like Minnesota having UMass again, like UMass is legit, like they're good. Again, like Mankato is always going to be a weird matchup anyways with Minnesota, and Western Michigan scares the fuck out of me no matter who's playing them. So I think like I'm taking Minnesota to beat UMass, and I'm taking Western Michigan to beat Mankato. I'm going to roll with Minnesota here.
For me, I mean, it goes either way, right? Like, they're going to either come in cold and get embarrassed by UMass, or they're going to come in and that's going to be the springboard to them feeling good. And I do think that on paper, like I think they're a better team than Western Michigan. That said, if they have any missteps, like Western Michigan will punish them, you know? Mm-hmm. But if they get through that first game and they're playing their game and they get back to where they were when we were buzzing over them back in December, like, I still think on paper, Minnesota is one of the best teams in the country. It's just which version of that team on paper are we going to see? They are very Jekyll Hyde. And I think if they come in and take care of business against UMass, I think they have the horses. Wow. No pun intended there, to get past Western Michigan. This is a very favorable draw for them. Mm-hmm. As far as the 2-3 matchups that you see across all of these regionals, like, UMass was the best one they could have hoped for. Doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy game by any means, but I don't know. I was not mad when I saw these draws. Now, if you ask Colby Cohen, Gophers have no chance, but
yeah, the greatest. I do have one bit of bad news for Minnesota.
Loyal SodaPod listeners, if you're in the South Metro or just need to explore some new breweries, head to Bloomington's first and only tap room, 9 Mile Brewing. Some of my favorite beers on tap right now are Current Obsession, 9 Mile's flagship New England IPA, and Harness the Dark, their Imperial Rye Porter aged in J. Carver rye whiskey barrels, brewed in collaboration with J. Carver for their 3rd anniversary party just this last month. 9 Mile will be hosting bingo every Thursday, with 2 blackout games starting at $500 and one progressing up to as much as $1,000.
UMass does have one of our former all-name team players. There is Francesco Del Elche, DELL''ELCE. First name Francesco.
Now, you know what though? I got some bad news for UMass. There's only 2 Minnesota teams in this regional. I don't know if you remember the famous, renowned Frozen Four that had 3 Minnesota teams plus UMass. Of course, fucking UMass wins. Like that was the most Minnesota Frozen Four ever.
Unbelievable.
So the fact there's only 2, like, it bodes a little bit better. But Jupe, go for puck live. If Jimmy doesn't perform, they are going nowhere. Hard to disagree with that. I also think the guy that really needs to get back on the score sheet, because I've liked a lot of what Jimmy's done, he just hasn't been scoring. I need to see top tier Brody Zemer back. Because he's been in and out of it, and like you've seen him, like his physicality is still there. He's like played fine hockey, but dude, he was a menace for a stretch. Like there were times where like I was ready to be like, holy crap, is he our best player? Mm-hmm. If he can get back to it, and if Jimmy can just find the back of the net, dude, Oliver Moore has been a man possessed. And I say of late. They haven't played of late, but rewind it, go back to whatever of late means. Like, he's not the problem on that line. They'll get going, and whatever combination they throw with Wood and Kurth, like, I think that's the line that's going to be the difference maker. Like, as long as Jimmy's generating opportunities, even if he's not scoring goals, like, if they're a problem, taking all the attention, and you can get that Kurth Wood combo, that could be what does it. And of course, there's the question mark at goaltending.
That was my next question.
Guys, but who's playing? Like, we actually don't know who's in
that. That was my question I was going to ask you. Is it Soulier or you?
I want Soulier, yeah, but I'm going to be honest. If they put Ari in, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I believe in the kid. It's just, I don't know.
That's one thing I really wish that wasn't a question. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I really hate the fact that that's a question and they haven't played in 2 weeks. Like, I hate that.
That's damn near 3.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, that's really like, and granted, Colby Cohen was going to shit on the Gophers no matter what, but he's right. Like, I think it's 19 days without playing an actual game. That's a problem. That is a real problem. And that's why, like, again, I think UMass is a very fortunate game, far from being a guarantee, but like, hey, if they can get right in this game, Western Michigan does not want to play the Gophers. Like, that's a real shit matchup for 1-2. So
yeah. And I mean, we'll see what version of Michael Robel shows up for UMass. I mean, he's played like 34 of their games this year in that. He's legit. But the two players on UMass I love, first of all, Adar Suniev. Oh my God, can he play? He's got 18 and 18 this year. He is like ridiculously skilled. He fucking hits. He can score goals. He's legit. And then Kenny Connors has been a beast for them. I think he's under a point per game, but like he factors all 3 zones too. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, the fact that you've got like 6'6" Michael Robel sitting in net, and like we've seen what he's done before at like World Juniors too. Like he's a big game player, big game goaltender, and he's like, I mean, he's played almost every fucking game for them. I think it's been like only 4 games that he hasn't played.
That's also a concern,
which is crazy. Like he said, 4 games off all year. So we'll see what happens. But again, I'm taking Minnesota here. Is it over UMass? Yes, I'm just taking them.
Yeah.
And is it gonna be like a homer pick for them to come out of here? Probably, because again, Western Michigan does scare the fucking shit out of me.
But for the 1 seeds, like, that's who you want, right? You don't want Maine, you don't want Michigan State, you don't want BC,
right?
Like it could have gone the other way, where the Gophers could have been the 1 and Western was the 2. Like it's the 4-5. If you look at the like full seeding, like this is as close of a matchup as you're going to get for that next one. So
yeah. The only things that are, I was about to say the only things that rattle off every boxler concern. I don't know like what the line combos are going to look like, and I don't know who's starting in net. But the other one question I'm going to have is what Sam Rinzel is going to show up to.
Yeah.
You know, like, are we going to get first like 15 games, Sam Rinzel? At that point, that is an absolute X factor for you, where it's like he's going to fucking play 30 minutes. He's going to be a beast, and he's probably going to put up 3 points. Like, he's an animal. It's just like that's another question. But I mean, the fact that Oliver Moore is buzzing is a big plus for me too. Like, the way that he's played, not again, like you said, not lately. No one's played lately, but he's just been a fucking animal. Second half of the year, he's just been good. Where it's like he's also making a lot of plays that don't result in points anyways, but like he's been solid. He's been fine, like a positive all year. But second half of the year, he's just like, it's like big moments in big games. He's stepping up and like making plays. So I love that. Because I love the player. Love watching him play. But we're taking the Gophers, baby. Just doing it. Hopefully Mankato just like at least like kicks, like physically grinds Western Michigan down too. Like that's the other thing where it's like Mankato is like fucking brutal team to play, and so it's just like it's not fun, and it's like playing in mud. So
they'll forget how to score.
Yeah, they will. But yeah, I love like the matchups are fucking phenomenal though. Like there's at least there's only like a 1 or 2 where I'm like I don't really care about this one.
I really just one, right?
Yeah, actually, literally one. I was trying to like say that, but yeah, no.
Yeah, fair point. After the first period, we'll pretty much know what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Dude, what a weird. Yeah.
And of course, that game had to be scheduled during the Ovechkin game. So now I might not even go.
Like, come on.
Bad. Just bad taste.
Oh, that's true too. But a potential of Pitlick versus Minnesota.
I mean, sounds very fun.
Yeah.
He also might get murdered.
Group, I'll kill him. Actually, no, it would be Hess might murder him.
Who?
Oh God. I said, oh my God, I said Kess. Kester.
Oh.
I literally said Kess like your dog.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? Kessel,
I think
been a while.
I think Kester might murder him.
That could be fun. And I mean, I'll still stand by this. I loved the stick toss, Sully. I know they lost the game. Don't care. That rocked so much.
Don't care. Yeah, I'm all in on the stick toss.
Tell you, if he did that in this tournament, all in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. I got nothing.
This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Joining the show today is one of us through and through, from White Bear Lake High School to Minnesota State. Then a few years with your Minnesota Wild to round out his playing career. And now, what is it? Your sixth season on the broadcast, plus co-hosting Wild on 7th podcast. Everything, man. Ryan Carter. Appreciate you jumping on, man.
Yeah, hey, Scott. Thanks for having me. Joe, good to see you. I think Mankato's fair. I still call it Mankato. It used to be Mankato State, and I was just after the marketing transition. I can remember getting emails that, hey, we're no longer Mankato State. We're rebranding to Minnesota State. I don't want to date myself, but yeah, I was right at that transition period. So it is Minnesota State now at Mankato. But yeah, good to be with you guys today.
That's a mouthful there.
It is a lot. We usually open with an obscure question, loosen up guests, whatever. Same one every time. But we've actually got a fan question we got to open with here today. Loyal listener Spoke Z wants to know the secrets to maintaining a perfect head of hair, not a single strand of hair out of place.
Yeah, our buddy Spoke, he's pretty good at tagging me on Twitter or wherever else it is and letting me know that he enjoys the hairstyle of the day. I actually think it started when I had the mullet, and yeah. I think that just was I wasn't getting a haircut during COVID, and the hair got long, and it's like, man, you work through or you live through that awkward length of hair where it's like you can't do anything with it, and you get to a spot where it's longer, and now you can maybe do something with it. It's hard to just all of a sudden cut it off. So I was like, I got to save some of this. So left the part in the back. Spoke Z caught his attention, but I don't know. My hair's not really versatile. It's rather straight actually, and it's not easily trained either. So good thing is where it falls now is where it stays. But yeah, the other secret, oddly, I'll catch some heat for this. The product that I use in my hair is just hand lotion. I don't use anything else. So I'll get out of the shower and yeah, it's just whatever's around. It's like I put it on my hands and I'll put it in my hair and then boom. And that started in my playing days because if I would have like gel or hairspray, it would like go on the front of your helmet and then it would run down your face from time to time. So I was like, this is terrible. I'd rather just have, and lotion was already like on my face or on my hands or whatever. So it was like, this works. So that's kind of how it started.
That's crazy. And how important is just the hair routine in general if you're actually going to work with a guy like John King?
Well, yeah. He certainly pays attention to hair. He appreciates good hair. But yeah, no. Again, for me, ironically, the hair, it's pretty simple. It's get out of the shower, a little hand lotion, toss it over. But sadly, today I've got it hidden beneath a white bear leg hockey hat. But yeah, it's not that rigorous. The only other downside is I've gotten gray early. I think I started graying around 22, 23 years old. I think that's in my family too. But whenever I complain about that, there are a handful of people that remind me it's rather good to have gray hair versus no hair at all. So take what's given and be happy about that. So.
Absolutely. As you can tell, the name of our podcast is Fellowship of the Rink, Lord of the Rings fans here. I wasn't sure if you have a nerd itch or fandom or movie series or anything like that that's kind of your go-to, or is your kind of off the ice kind of quirky thing being a beekeeper, which I've heard is a big deal for you.
Yeah, I do like the movies like Lord of the Rings, some of those kind of more fantasy ones. I'll get into those. I don't know what it's like at your guys' house, but my wife and I, we actually don't align on any television or movies ever. So it works out well. Like on nights that I'm working, I can come home and kind of veg out on my own stuff. And that's where I get into my own series. But yeah, I would say where I get real weird is probably the beekeeping, saying like barbecuing meats. I think that happens to every guy. Joe, you're a new dad now. You went from probably, and this will be like it seems like it happens to every guy. You go from, kind of apartment living to beers with your buddies at the brewery to now you're kind of at home because you've got the kid on the weekend. You're like, what am I going to do all day? I can't go anywhere. So you're like, tell you what, this barbecue thing's not bad. I can smoke meat. I can hang outside
for hours,
like eight hours. I can tell the wife I can't do anything else. I got $100 brisket on the grill, and you can have a couple of beers. So it's a good way to enjoy the weekend. So I kind of adopted that as a hobby too.
Well, how'd you get the beekeeping thing going? Like, what sparked that interest, or I guess you say passion for it?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy because COVID seemed like it was so long ago, but it changed, I think, my life and everybody's life in a lot of ways that I really didn't see coming. But it gave me some time. I got COVID when it was like the 14 days in the basement, or you were quarantined. That was the long stretch, and I really didn't feel ill or poorly at all. And the only reason it was really caught is because we had the NHL testing. So if you were going to be around the team, you were tested daily. And as soon as you showed any symptoms or anything, they're like, boom, you're gone, 14 days. So I was sequestered to the basement, felt fine. And I was like, man, I've got this in. Go back a moment. I had a buddy. I've got a daughter who has food allergies. She's got a tree nut allergy. She has seasonal allergies. And I have a friend that said, hey, man, listen, I've got seasonal allergies and issues. And in lieu of taking Zyrtec every day, I take a tablespoon of honey that we get from the backyard, local honey. And it supposedly helps. So I was sitting in the basement. I was like, what am I going to do? I got to do something positive, something productive. So I start watching YouTube videos. I watched like 80 hours of YouTube videos. I read like 2 beekeeping books. And 14 days later, I came up the stairs and my family's sitting there. I just imagine myself glowing like honey saying, hey, I'm a beekeeper now. And it was that next day I went out and got all the gear, ordered the bees, and kind of the rest is history. So that's how I became a beekeeper.
How many do you have now?
I've had up to like 5 hives, and that got chaotic. So they split, and there's a lot to learn about them. They kind of live their own lives and do their own thing. The beekeeper's job is to like kind of manage it and kind of control it a little bit. I didn't have a great feel for it early on, so I went from like 2 hives, and they split. Then I had 4, then 1 swarmed, so I had to pick that one out of a tree. That became 5. With 5 yields way too much honey. It was a little bit too much work for one guy in his backyard. So I've reduced it down to 3. I'll be between 2 and 4 hives at any point in time.
Well, I've covered guys in my career that have been on 15, 17, 18 years without, reaching a cup final. And I was just thinking to myself, you as a rookie, your first year, with the Ducks there, and they go on their cup run, like what's your most vivid memory of playing some of those games and just kind of the whole experience of being part of that group?
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, one of my first memories was I was sitting on the bench for my first ever game, and it was the Western Conference Final. And to the point you made, there are guys that have played a lot of hockey and great hockey and never had a chance to play even that deep in the playoffs. So my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm about to soil myself, and I look to my right, and it's Team Solani on the bench. And by that point, he's already like a Hall of Fame guy. Like, he's a household name. I couldn't believe I was sitting on the same bench with him. But in that same moment, that was the furthest he had ever been in the playoffs in his career. Hall of Famer, furthest he'd ever been, West Final. And here I am, some young, dumb little kid, first ever NHL game in the West Final. And I was like, man, just don't screw this up for Team Moot. Don't do it. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I think in the end it was good too, because I didn't understand probably the situation I was in and the pressure that everybody else is kind of under in that spot. So a little naive, didn't play a huge role, but a great experience.
And I mean, you're biased, obviously, but I'll come out and say it for you. I don't think I have seen a better, like, no shit, this is the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup this year team than that 07 Ducks roster.
Brian Burke, the general manager at the time, he still will stand on any mountain and scream, hey, of all the cup winners of all time, I'll put my 2007 Ducks against anybody, and I think it's a 6-game series at best. So you look at the lineup, it was, Chris Pronger, Scott Niedermayer, they could play 30 minutes a night. So you have like an NHL top tier, like a top 4 D-man on the ice the entire game. You have Scott Niedermayer, who, if things go into overtime, he's Captain Clutch. The game's over. He's likely going to find a way to score. Yeah. Up front, it was Teemu Selanne, and he really had chemistry with Andy McDonald and Chris Kunitz. Like, that line was buzzing. And then I think the line that really put them over the top was Getzlaf, Perry, Penner. That it was kind of at the beginning of the salary cap era where you needed some of these guys on entry-level deals. So they were young, they were proving themselves, and that was really probably the top line, but they were hidden as the second line. And then when you think about how the game used to be played, it was, you've got your top line, your second line, then a checking line, which I don't think teams are really set up like that anymore. And what the Ducks had there was the best checking line, and they played more minutes than anybody else. So think three Eriksson X and Niedermayer, Moen, and Sammy Paulson. 3 of those guys on the ice all the time. You put them out against anybody, and they just shut them right down. So skill guys would go out, they'd score their couple goals a game. Nobody else would score because you got Pronger, Niedermayer, Bolsherman, O'Donnell. You could go down the list. And then in net, you had J.S. Jaguar. So at every level, it was just stacked.
What was your cup day like? What was your moment like with that?
Well, again, everything happened so fast. So I played my first game in the West Final. A couple weeks later, you're winning a Stanley Cup. And then I think I was early in the tour, so I had it like June. So it was before July 1 that I have the Stanley Cup. So everything kind of came together fast, and I didn't know what to do, but I was like, man, I should just try to share this with as many people as possible. So, which turned out to be the right decision. Brought it home to White Bear Lake, and we had it at the rink here. A ton of people showed up for it, and then flew it down to school. It was cool. There was a flight program at school, and one of the pilots from school flew up to the cities, grabbed me and my dad the Stanley Cup. We flew down to Mankato. We had a little event down there in Mankato. Flew us back up here to the cities, and then of course there needs to be a little bit of time for myself and the buddies to hit town and have a good time. So we did that to end the night.
Was Anaheim days the days when you took an Ambien before a game, or was that different stuff? I couldn't. When I heard that story, I couldn't believe it. And I was like wondering, how do you function overall, like in an NHL game after taking one?
Think about being in the battle of your life with yourself and having to play a game at the NHL level against, mind you, the the Chicago Blackhawks, who at that time were unbelievable too. It was Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane and those guys. So it wasn't a great choice. Again, naive. When you're young, you make stupid mistakes. I thought it just helped you fall asleep. I didn't realize like it's going to keep you asleep for like 8 hours. And I needed a nap that day so bad. I didn't feel it, and I was like, I'm not risking this. Take the little pill that they hand off. You know, and at that time there was no like pill bottle that you can read. In hindsight, I could have jumped on the phone and Googled it or something, but I didn't do that. I didn't know. It turned out to be a mistake, but a funny one.
The a story I asked you about before, I know you talked about it, you know, the line brawl with the Devils and the Rangers, and like you don't see that unless it's like the Four Nations tournament, I guess, the amount of fights in one game. But like, what do you remember about the build up to that, and kind of was kind of coming, and it was you one of the guys that were like a true fighter that was actually part of that group versus some of the rest of the guys.
Yeah, and so that's all weird. Again, we've been at this podcast for 13 minutes, and I'm making this point that I'm really aloof. I was the only one in the building that didn't know we were fighting. So if you go back in time, so what started this was New York came into our building, to New Jersey's building, our building 3 weeks prior, and they had started their fourth line, and Pete DeBoer, our coach, had put out some skill guys and said, all right, we'll get a good matchup early on. Maybe we'll score. And, you know, but their tough guys ran around and they laid big hits on Kovalchuk and Zach Parise. So instantly on our bench, we kind of knew what was going on. We had to respond. So my first shift out there, Brandon Dubinsky's out there, hit him, we fight. And I end up hurting Brandon Dubinsky. Like, he leaves the game and he doesn't return, and he doesn't play until that first game back at Madison Square Garden. So our coach now, when we go to Madison Square Garden, Pete DeBoer decides he's going to do the same thing to John Tortorella. He starts the tough guys. So we start the game, and Tortorella and those guys, they have the opportunity then to look at the lineup, match it, and then put their guys out. That's kind of the way it works. So we know in the locker room that it's fourth line versus fourth line, tough guys versus tough guys. But I play the middle. I'm looking at who I'm facing off against. So it's Brandon Dubinsky. He hasn't played a game since the last time I fought him 3 weeks ago. This is his first game back. He has a full face shield on from warm-ups. So there's no, I had no clue we were fighting. Maybe the Wings were going to fight. I didn't really know. I thought it was going to be a hard, heavy first shift. I didn't anticipate the D-man coming up to take the draw to fight. So that's how that one goes. Again, everybody in the building knew something was going to go down except for me. But yeah, so it was not something that was planned, but I do like and miss that there was an element of pride when it came to fighting and standing up for your teammates. You know, like that. Those events occurred 3 weeks prior. We still wanted to make a statement. We were still going to stand our ground. And as silly as it might seem at times, fighting's a way to do that. And that made a statement. In that year, if you go forward, we end up playing the Rangers in the East Final. And those little things that occurred during the regular season, like a fight at center ice and how those things played out, they mattered in the end. And we found a way to beat the Rangers in the East Final to play the final. So you never know, but when you sacrifice, you do the hard things, and sometimes it pays dividends down the road too.
And you played with Hall of Famers in your career and Cup champs, like Kirill Kaprizov, being around him, watching him up close. Like, anybody he reminds you of a guy you played with or played against, and like I guess what makes him so unique in your mind?
Yeah, he's a little different because there's not a lot of players that are comparable to him. Like, he's a difference maker that doesn't like beat you one-on-one. I play with guys that are great one-on-one, like Ilya Kovalchuk can beat you. He's a sniper, and I do think that Kaprizov has elements of Kovalchuk's game within him. Good shooter, can score from any angle. And Ilya Kovalchuk was known as a goal scorer, but he was also a great setup guy, good passer, 2-on-1s. If there's a pass there, Kovalchuk's making it. I think Kaprizov's the same. But what differentiates Kaprizov is his like willingness to go out on the walls and to win battles and to compete that way. And I'm not taking anything away from a guy like Ilya Kovalchuk or any of these other superstars when it comes to compete, but I think Kaprizov's game is just a little bit more well-rounded than any other superstar that I've been around or that I've seen. And again, I just appreciate the fact that he doesn't play the game one-on-one. He uses his teammates. He's deceptive, but he's smart. He can finish. It's incredible, his skill set and what he can do, and almost at the same time what he can't do. It's very minimal what he can't do out there on the ice.
Yeah, and speaking of Kaprizov, how crazy is it that it took Matt Boldy 32 extra games to tie his team leading 23 goals?
Yeah, exactly. I know that that was surprising. And on our podcast, we had kind of had a countdown on how long it was going to take somebody to pass Kirill Kaprizov for leading the team in points on the year. And it was week after week after week. We're like, Kirill's still leading, he's still leading. And to build that big of a gap, it's like, it's different but similar to plus minus. Like, you look at the plus minus stat, it doesn't really matter. If there's a variance of plus 10 to minus 10, you're kind of right in the range. What matters is when you see like outliers where guys are plus 40 and the next guy's like plus 10, or you've got a guy that's minus 30 and the next worst guy's minus 10 or something. It's the outliers, and those outliers, they're doing something that's different. And sometimes you can't always pinpoint it with the naked eye, but they're just different. And that's what Kirill is offensively. You almost can't pinpoint what he's doing on any given night to get that big of a cushion with points and with goals, and to be that efficient and that productive, but he is. And I think on a nightly basis, he'll play a couple extra shifts with the fourth line, third line, but for the most part, he's playing with Zuccarello, Rossi, Eck, whomever it might be, and he's still, ripping up the point production line and building a gap for himself. It's like, how does he do that? I don't know, but it's something special, and there's something that he's doing that is special, that allows him to build such a point gap there. But amazing how he does it.
For sure. And I know we're coming up on time we had talked about. We do have a sponsor question that we always end on. A couple more wild topics too, if you have time. If not, we can jump right to that.
Yeah, whatever. I got time.
Okay, awesome. Well, this one's a little bit more obscure, but who's going to struggle more when Riley Heidt and Hunter Haight are both in St. Paul? You or LaPana?
I think good question. The haters. I think it's going to be LaPanta a little bit. Although you start to learn style and numbers. I think he calls off numbers, not names. But gosh, yeah. He'll probably struggle to see or recognize which one. That's already starting to show up a little bit where he can't figure out who's out there. And it's happening right now. It's different, but they look similar with Hinnistros and Ryan Hartman. Like, it's hard. Who was that out there? But, yeah, I'm going to throw that one at LaPanta.
There, that's fun. I like that. It feels weird to say if, based on how the season started and still seeing a little bit of a point cushion, but I think it's fair to say if the Wild make the playoffs at this point. Which teams do you think they fare best against? Like, who do you want to see that match up with?
So I think it's more or less a done deal that they're making the playoffs. I think they're locked in the 7th spot. It's going to take 2 teams to play really good hockey down the stretch and to jump them. I think it's feasible that one team can go on a heater and do that too. I just don't see it happening. I think they've built a good enough cushion here down the stretch to where they're going to end up in 7th. But who do they play well against? Ironically, and even throughout this stretch without Kaprizov, they've played better against better teams. They've for whatever reason struggled against unpredictable teams. So Utah, even a team like Seattle last night, they outshot them. Seattle had their chances. They didn't score. Gustafsson was good. But there's a predictability to good teams and well-coached teams that the Wild seem to play well against, and they can rise to the occasion. They're good against Colorado. They're good against LA. Some of these teams that they know how they're going to play, those teams are kind of committed. And the Wild are maybe at times a little bit better at staying committed to a style of game than these teams that on paper are better than them right now. So but they're not going to get an opportunity to play one of those wild card kind of teams, so to speak. So they're going to have to go against, and it's really looking like it's maybe Dallas if they can catch Colorado. I don't think that they're going to be able to chase down Dallas and get the 2 spot. But maybe they can chase down Colorado to get the 3 spot, have to face Dallas. And then if they're stuck in 7th, then they're moving out to the Pacific most likely, because I don't think anybody's catching Winnipeg. So that's all of a sudden
Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas and Edmonton.
I want Edmonton.
LA's right there. Yeah, you want Edmonton, but you only want Edmonton if Brodeen's good. And
right.
I think everybody's confident now because he's on the ice, he's skating, that he's going to come back, and he's one of those guys where when he hits the ice, it's like game 30. It doesn't matter if it's the first day of training camp or after a long layoff. Like he doesn't miss a beat. He's the same guy on the ice all the time. But yeah, Edmonton is a team that over the last couple of years, they haven't looked on paper like they're a playoff team, but when you have the world's best player and maybe 2 of the best 5 up front, they can be difference makers. While they've shown, though, that they can make those guys struggle and get frustrated. So I think I would like that matchup. I think Vegas scares me a little bit because they're big, their decor is huge. And I think our forward group struggles against those bigger decors a little bit too. So if I was playing, hey, let's guess who they're going to play against and who they'd fare the best against, it might be Edmonton at this point in time.
Last question before our sponsor one. You've been hearing this or talk about this the last 3 or 4 years, is the summer of 2025 when the Parise and Suter cap hits would be off the books, to be a chance for the Wild to kind of cash it and finally be back to even, I guess, with everybody else. Now the cap is going up a significant amount the next 2 years. If you're Bill Guerin, like, what's your summer shopping list look like? What areas does this need? Like, what players or what kind of players does this team need? Aside from signing Kirill Kaprizov to make this kind of into a contender?
Yeah, good question. And I think Bill Guerin has done a pretty good job of tempering expectations. Like if you look at that money, a lot of that money is already probably spent. They give 8.5 to Brock Faber, and that hits the books then. I think what's going to help them too is it sounds like the salary cap's going up, so there is going to be a little extra money to be spent there. Where I think they've done a good job is they've built through the draft and they've had kind of their own guys and they've developed those guys and they've paid those guys. So you've got a good core group of guys that are happy with their deals, that have earned their deals, and they've spent internally. They haven't gone out and chased guys that are maybe past their prime or in the last couple of years of their prime and having to get 2-3 years out of a guy, but give them a 6-year deal. But what areas do I think that they could use some help? I think for them to be a true legit contender now, you need to find guys that are excellent in their role and not just good in their role, excellent. I think it'd be wise for them to spend a couple bucks on a true face-off guy, kill that story. And Hines talks about how the penalty kill right now, the keys are win that first face-off. You need the face-off guy. Go get one, right? So you've got to have a guy that gets you over the top on face-offs. That's so competitive that if they're practicing it in practice and it elevates everybody else, go get your 55% face-off guy, 54%. If you got to put him on the fourth line, so be it, whatever that is, but you need a face-off guy that can put you over the top, that you trust in all those spots. And then I think you probably need another sniper, right? Like a goal scorer. I think this year without Kaprizov, you've learned too that Boldy's he's a good complement piece, and he can get you 30-40, but it's hard when all the attention's on him. And if you get another scorer, like a legit scorer, you all of a sudden become like a matchup nightmare. Like, all right, you shut one line down, we've got this other one. I think a 30 goal scorer. I don't know what those guys look like. If you could get like a Tyler Toffoli or one of those guys, I don't know if he's a UFA, but I'm just throwing names up there of guys that over time have proven that they are just score. One of those guys, a face-off guy, and I think the decor has actually been pretty solid. So I like where that's set up.
Nice.
Brock Besser's out there too, potentially, but yeah, who could score? But
I don't
we'll
know.
see.
According to his GM, he's not worth anything. So that was crazy. I can't believe he said that.
Well,
I
he said-
know
he-
that's
he
like
said
that's
in-
like a negotiation tactic, but that one that's where like you kind of skip the small talk and you go right for it. Like usually when I don't know, it's like I consider this when you're chirping, like you start with a pretty benign chirp and then it escalates to where it gets pretty
Yeah.
serious, right? But you have to go through all those steps back and forth before you can hit the jugular, and I don't know, but it seemed like that one went straight for the jugular, unprovoked too, like right there. It didn't make sense.
Yeah, uncalled for. Soft lead and then to our final question here, Cards. How's the golf game?
Oh, well, we'll see. Last year, I think it ended all right. I played one tournament at Stone Ridge with a friend, a member guest, and we did okay, not great last year, but it's always up and down. I've got the bad back now, so at any given point in time, I might go down, tie my shoes, come up, and be crooked for the next couple of weeks. So I'm always fearful on the golf course. One wrong swing, and all of a sudden, I'll look like I've got scoliosis for a month or something. But it's up and down because of that. Never as consistent as I'd like it to be, but I still enjoy getting outside and playing.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, we end every interview with our Waggle golf question. Everybody go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Quarter zips, polos, hats, you name it. Carts, if you could pick 3 people, dead or alive, celebrity, athlete, doesn't matter, round out your dream golf foursome going out for a day, and bonus points if you want to throw out a course.
Yeah, geez, good question. I don't have a course on the top of my head. I haven't played Pebble Beach, so I think I would love that one. I just watched it. Actually, you know what? I take that back. Augusta, because you can't get on it. And I've been there. I've gone to the Masters. It's fun. It's Augusta. I take that back. That would be great. I'd love to play with Tiger, like prime Tiger, though. I want prime Tiger. I want Michael Jordan. Because I just want to try to see if I can't get in his pocket and just double down. I want to know how big the stakes can be. But I want Tiger's bank account when I'm making those bets against Michael Jordan. No sweat. And then let's see here. Who else? I would say probably like my stepfather then too, because it'd be cool to take somebody that along with you to an experience like that.
So no LaPanta then. I'm a little surprised.
Oh shoot, forgot about LaPanta. Yeah, no, he didn't make the cut.
Oh man, who's in your cart and who's in the stepdad's?
Oh, good question. I think I'm taking Michael Jordan. I do love Tiger Woods, but I'd love to bend the ear of Michael Jordan and just see what he's all about.
That'd be one hell of a foursome there. Really competitive, and again, bring somebody else's wallet other than your own if you're going to be doing that. So
right, that's all I want. I'd love to see those
bankroll
go back and forth. Cigar in Jordan's mouth, and just where can this game go? How high can the stakes be? Let's see you guys compete against each other. That'd be a blast.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, for taking extra time too, and just enjoy the conversation, of course. And I will not take an Ambien before the next game I cover. I'll make sure, unless Russo's there to pack me up, I won't be doing that.
Yeah, well, if you do, just make sure you let me know, because I'm going to watch every second of it. So.
and now
tape that.
Next time you see Joe at the rink, you're going to have to ask him if he used hand lotion in his hair.
That's right.
I've got great hair too. There you go.
Oh, appreciate it, Carts.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Final segment every week. We have Keyboard Warriors, your NHL Hot Take segment, brought to you by our incredible friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. If you haven't already, I don't know what you're doing with your lives, but East 7th, right by the X. It's a quick 15-minute walk. Best craft beer you're going to get in St. Paul. And if you're at the X, whether it's for the remainder of the regular season or postseason coming up here, which seems to be safe. I don't know, Z. We'll see.
you can enjoy their Crowler of the Day, Section 105, or their Raindrops flagship IPA on tap, Sections 112, 217, and Club Level 36. Today, we just have one hot take that we're going to dive into pretty thoroughly. Riding shotgun here, Judd'z, Budz, prospect aficionado, spoke Z, who I don't know if you guys heard, but earlier in this episode, he got a great celebrity question in with one Ryan Carter. Z, let's comment on that first, Z. What do you feel about Ryan Carter's response to how he maintains the hair?
Every morning when I wake up and I'm about to leave the apartment to go to work and I'm having just a non-cooperative hair day, I'm going to walk into the bathroom and look at the hand lotion I have in there and think to myself, if Carts does it, business out front, party out back, I'm not going to have to do it. I cannot believe the hand lotion is like, because the fact the answer started with like, yeah, you know, it was during COVID, my hair stays pretty much where it is, blah, 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 blah. The other thing I do with it, and I'm going to get hate for this, is hand lotion. I was like, wait, what? You just started this answer with like, yeah, you know, nothing crazy. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, throw some hand lotion there. I also love the fact that he had mentioned, like, because when he was playing, if you want to put like hair gel or hairspray and it like drips down your face, I was like, wait, how often were you doing that? I think that was the other thing. I was like, that's funny. I'm gonna think about the hand lotion in the hair like at least twice a day now for the next couple weeks. What an answer! I'd like, and again, you were like, you are not gonna believe the answer to what Karts throws in his hair. And I didn't. I was trying to think of what the funniest answer was going to be. And hand lotion didn't even come close to being a possibility in my brain. But I mean, he's a beauty. What can we say? What an interview! What a beauty! Love him. He's an absolute treasure.
I didn't think we were going to beat the Liam Ogren hair.
It's insane. We're gonna have to start, or well, you guys are gonna have to start asking everyone what they do. Like everyone's gonna. I'm gonna need to know now.
Is it our Duke Cannon question of the week, or do we go with like Kirkland hand lotion question of the week?
That could be a little. I don't know.
Oh, all right. Well, our one hot take that we need to dive in on here because it needs to be unpacked a little bit. My hot take is that Alex Ovechkin is more relevant than the entire Minnesota Wild franchise. Which is, I mean, I feel like it's a 50-50 split of people like listening to this right now being like, no shit, or like, what? And the rationale as we go through and think about all of the goals that Ovechkin has scored, which as I record this, I know he might have a couple more. I think he's just got one more game before he faces the Wild. But as it sits right now, 888 goals in his career, which is insane. Since the start of his career, 888. Great. I went back and pulled up the historical numbers for the leading goal scorer for the Minnesota Wild since the franchise existed. Their total, and that's with 4 seasons that Ovechkin didn't even play. They had 717. From their leading scorer, let's be clear. Some of the names, as we go back and look at this, because this is going all the way back to 2000, 2001. First year, Gabrick, Hendrickson, and Walls all had 18 goals. Do I have to count all of those? Maybe I should redo my figures. Maybe each of them count since they tied. Then we had a couple years of Gabrick. 2003, 2004, Alexander Daigle with 20.
A clear 0 for everybody during the lockout, of course. We got Gabrick, Rolston, Gabrick. Owen Nolan coming in with 25 goals in 08-09. The one that'll really trip people up would be 09-10. Andrew Burnett and Guillaume Latendresse. Marty Havlat with 22. Danny Heatley, the heater, 24 in 12. Does not hit the same as 50 in 07. Then we've got a bunch of Parisis and Stalls thrown in there. Jason Pominville had 31 year. And then we've got a big run of Kaprizov. Out of those seasons, twice was Ovechkin not the highest scorer of the group. It's just insane the level of consistency that this man has had, the relevance he's had. Him and Sidney Crosby saved the NHL. Like, the two of them were the face of the NHL for the past 20 years. And he's had one season below 30 goals. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Is he more relevant than the entire Minnesota Wild franchise?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's like, yes, because if you were to ask a bunch of people who don't watch hockey, like a couple of players that are in the NHL, they'd be able to be like, Crosby, that Ovechkin, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, there's going to be people like the Minnesota what? The Wild? Is that their team name is the Wild? I don't think it's a crazy thing at all to suggest that Ovechkin is more relevant than the Minnesota Wild. Like, I think, like, there are people who don't watch enough hockey that have probably heard of Alexander Ovechkin that have not heard of the Minnesota Wild. And again, when you just look at the players, like you said, like the leading scorer for the Minnesota Wild year after year, a couple of them, like, you forget that they were even on the Minnesota Wild.
Right.
So, like, I think you're going to get people who will be like, okay, that's just like disrespectful, blah, 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 blah.
Extremely.
At the same time, it's just like he is legitimately a superstar in this league. Realistically, Kirill Kaprizov is the first actual superstar that we've had in Minnesota at all. So, yeah, no, I don't think it's like a crazy hot take. Because, again, like, I mean, this is someone that's potentially, is going to shatter the record that was, like, thought of as an untouchable record for a very long time. And they're like, he's just the name brand in Alexander Ovechkin. Like, people have heard of Alexander Ovechkin, know who he is. Like, even if you don't watch a ton of hockey or watch hockey, like, you've heard of Alexander Ovechkin. Like, he's done Sports Center commercials. Like, he's been everywhere. So, like,
that's a great one.
I don't think it's crazy. It's just like, for like Wild fans, I think like, yeah, you're gonna get the people like that's just like disrespectful or whatever.
Yeah, but for me, the reason that I don't even feel bad saying it, the only year that the Minnesota Wild were loosely a contender, they came out of absolutely nowhere. They upset the Vancouver Canucks, which was awesome, and got, they got J.S. Giguère. What can you do? But outside of that, you can't point to a season and tell me that they were legitimate contenders for the Stanley Cup. Like, I've never looked at their roster and said, this is a team that can reasonably win the Stanley Cup. That's really tough. And like, this is more me empathizing with the fan base, because there's a lot of fans who are starting to freak out and raise their hands at Billy Guerin and be like, enough's enough. We need a winner. Like, we're done waiting. And Ovechkin, as an individual, being more relevant in the team, like, that says a lot, even with how big of a name he is. But like, you can't say that he's bigger than the Montreal Canadiens. You can't do that. And the Wild are definitely a younger franchise. Okay, let's play this. Is Alexander Ovechkin more relevant than the Vegas Golden Knights? I'd argue no. Like, it's at least you got to sit there and think about it, right?
Yeah.
Because back to your point, I bet there's a lot of people who know nothing about hockey that are like, oh yeah, I know about Vegas.
Right.
So it's just interesting, and it begs the question, I guess. I'm curious from your perspective. When it's all said and done, is Ovi on the Mount Rushmore?
I think it's going to be tough to keep a guy who has the most goals scored in your sports history off of a Mount Rushmore at the same time. It's just like, I don't know.
There's only 4 spots. It's tough.
That's the thing. I feel like we have to get rid of the Mount Rush. We have to come up with a new,
Okay. The human centipad.
Oh,
I don't know. Like what is? Do we go with like?
It is crazy.
spider?
It's like we do have to get rid of the idea of the Mount Rushmore because there's like guys like Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Mario Lemieux, Gordie Howe. Like they're not coming off. Like they're there.
Could you argue that like, what if we like sandwiched Sid and Ovi together with the impact they've had on the sport? Like that would easily be on there, but I think either one of them individually, like you could argue to get them on over Gordie Howe, for instance, couldn't you? I'm not saying that they should. I'm just saying like you could argue it. The only ones for me that'll never come off are Gretzky and Lemieux, right? Like I don't know how it could even be possible. But Orr's even tough. Gordie's tough. Like I don't know. You're right. We need a bigger list, but
I don't know. I don't think you can
too many?
take Howe or Orr off because people got to remember too with Bobby Orr, like he changed what being a defenseman was. Like there was no one that was doing what he was doing ever at all.
Yeah.
And then I mean like Gordie Howe's nickname is Mr. Hockey. Like you're not going to take that guy off the Mount Rushmore. I mean, he played when he was like fucking 50 years old. He's scoring 20, 30 goals. I mean, like, yeah, whatever. People can talk about like the time frame. But at the same time, like he was playing when he was 50. But Wayne Gretzky's favorite player. Like Wayne might be pissed at you too. And if you take him off the Mount Rushmore. Bottom line is we need a new version of Mount Rushmore because like I don't think you could possibly take those 4 off. But like for me, Sid's gonna belong like in that conversation. Obviously, at this point, when Ovechkin breaks his record, I think he's there too.
Yeah.
Like, there's gonna be guys there. So,
McDavid will eventually be in that conversation. It is crazy though that like Gordie Howe is Gretzky's favorite player, and then Gretzky's like, "What number is he? 9? I'm twice as good as him. Give me 2 of them."
that was it. That's what happened. That's how the conversation went. But like, just as an aside too, because I can't remember if it was on. Because I've done the last couple of these with you, hot takes, whatever. We've talked about Ovechkin before, but I don't know if it was Judd'z Budz or if it was this podcast. But like, I was listening to Russo on like that. I was able to catch the first couple of minutes of that, the most recent one before we jumped on and just did Judd'z Budz. We talked about the fact that like as he gets closer, as Ovechkin gets closer to the record, they're going to be doing these ceremonies pregame, and they're going to be bringing like Wayne Gretzky. It sounds like that's already like that's just going on now. So like I love that. That's so cool. Like, so in theory, I think Gretzky's going to Minnesota. I don't really know.
I thought it was once he's within 5.
Maybe that's what it is.
Which right now, unless
Yes.
I mean, it could be depending on how he plays against Winnipeg, which tough go. Like Winnipeg, you gotta just not play Hellebuck that game. He's got to rest, right?
Yeah, I didn't have to. Yeah, just start the tour early.
But he's 6 short and 7 from passing him
Right.
as we record this. So if
I couldn't remember if they said 5 or 4. I couldn't remember.
yeah. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, it's too bad. Like if he doesn't get hurt, he's probably already broken it.
Right. Yeah, that's what's crazy too. Like it's already been done if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
I just records like this, it's gonna be very cool to just like be alive and be a fan of the sport when it happens. Cause I mean, like, very good chance this specific record doesn't get broken again. Like we saw Marlowe play the most games. Now we're gonna see, which is like a whatever. You're like, it's like a like a cool.
We saw Phil Kessel with the
like,
Iron Man streak.
Iron Man. We got, yeah, exactly. Marlowe. Now we're gonna see the goal record. Like being alive and like being a big fan of the sport when these kinds of records get broken is like the coolest thing in the world. So we're all lucky to be able to watch it.
There we go. Shout out again, Barrel Theory. Everyone go check them out pre-game, post-game, or during the game at the XL Energy Center. We'll bring you some more hot takes next week.
For those of you that aren't already subscribers of The Athletic, act fast and take advantage of the $1 per month for your first year promo. Want to take advantage of all of the great writing we get from guys like Joe Smith and Michael Russo covering the Minnesota Wild, as well as access across the NHL and across all sports to some incredible writers. We really appreciate those of you that tune in every week to Fellowship of the Rink. If you haven't already, check out our other shows on the network like Judd'z Budz if you want wild prospect and NHL draft profile talk. MNCAA if you want to hear about all of the Division I programs here in the state of Minnesota. Wildly Informed for Minnesota Wild Talk and a little bit deeper dive into the analytics side of things. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Soda Pod. Otherwise, thanks as always for listening. Go Wild, go Gophers. You stay classy. State of Hockey.